just got some brand new news thanks to an interview with Aonuma and the Zelda team that might hint at some changes and some tweaks to the Zelda formula coming for the next mainline game. This is pretty interesting. We know that Aonuma has talked about loving that open-air Zelda experience that he's created with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I know not everybody loves it because it takes away more traditional dungeons, the more linear gameplay that a lot of people really loved with the classic 3D Zelda games, but it looks like he is going to be continuing to expand on that. It's something that he's been very vocal about, and if you look at the sales and also the reviews for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it is no doubt in my mind that Nintendo is going to continue pushing into that direction. Now, once again, I know some people might like that, some people might not. But regardless, we might have some information as to what else Aonuma and the Zelda team want to do with that formula. Now, before we get started, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys absolutely killed it the last video, getting us even closer to our goal of 400,000 and just getting to 380,000 right now. You can make that happen by leaving a like and subscribing if you want to stay up to date on all things Zelda. 4Gamer held an interview with Aonuma talking about the development of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. And Aonuma actually stated during the interview, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which I think they meant to say Imprisonment, will be the first Zelda-related title on the Nintendo Switch 2. We actually wanted it to be the ones to release the first one ourselves, and laughs. However, the inspiration we've gained from this collaboration with Koei Tecmo might be reflected in the Zelda games we create in the future. While you're playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, once again, supposed to be Imprisonment, please keep that in mind and look forward to our future Zelda titles. Now, there's lots of ways that we can interpret this, and I've already seen a lot of people saying that means they haven't started on the next Zelda game, everybody. It's going to be another 6 years. No, that's not what that means. Do not worry about that. The game has probably been well in development by now. Aonuma is literally just answering questions from Age of Imprisonment. Not to mention, this game feels like a direct sequel to that of Age of Calamity, which technically it is, but yeah, lots of the mechanics and sequences of the way the battling works and stuff is literally just pulled from Age of Calamity, so I'm sure Nintendo has been well at work with the next Zelda game. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom was back at the beginning of 2023. We're about to enter 2026, so I'm sure they have some stuff already getting done. But I find it interesting that the Zelda team is taking some inspiration from the spin-off Hyrule Warriors games and maybe even incorporating them in future titles, which could be incorporated within the next mainline Zelda game. And for them to mention it at all tells me that they probably are incorporating some things from those games, and there actually is a lot of stuff that I would really love to see pulled from Hyrule Warriors and brought into mainline Zelda. One thing that I'll say right now, in both Age of Calamity and Age of Imprisonment, I know Link isn't technically in Age of Imprisonment, but it is like a clone version of him as a construct, but the way I describe how he fights in this game is the way how I always thought Link would fight if this was like a movie or show or some type of mass media production, where it's just so fluid and smooth and so fast and engaging compared to him just swiping, shielding, or, you know, hitting theory time in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. Honestly, it's been one of my biggest problems with Zelda games in general, is just the combat with Link is not fun. That's why I really love Skyward Sword. It forces you to actually swing the sword in various different ways and aim your swings, so that way you're not just, you know, flailing your sword around or shielding or, you know, once again hitting theory rushes over and over and over again. So maybe pulling a page from the combat of the Warriors games would be great, because Link's moveset and stuff in these games is so cool. Obviously, it wouldn't be exactly the same, but I think pulling from and drawing from a lot of those moves and moveset I had in the Warriors games for Link would be really cool to see in a modern 3D Zelda game. Now, to me, it comes down between two things with these games that they could really pull from. The combat, like I just talked about, and also the playable characters. I see a lot of people also thinking that it could mean more playable characters. Now, this is something that the series has experimented with in a little way in the past. For instance, you have Wind Waker, where there were a couple dungeons where you could play as Medley and also Makar, but it was very strange how that worked. You almost put Link in a trance where it looked like he was mind controlling them or something. I didn't really like that, so just having the option to be able to just play with another character would be cool, and we've seen it in some of the DS games. We've even seen it with like Phantom Zelda in Spirit Tracks, where you played as her for a lot of that game, so maybe they could really experiment adding some other characters that you can actually play with. Maybe there's missions where you have to play as Orito or Goron or maybe a Zora or Gerudo. That could be pretty cool, but I feel like that would only really work in dungeons, because I don't know how that would work in an overworld where you're kind of exploring and adventuring with Link. I really don't want there to be characters that just take the presence away from Link, so I think having like specific dungeons where there's side characters that you can switch to in order to get certain tasks done could be pretty cool. For example, they continue the open world tradition with the next game, but there's actually full-fledged dungeons. There's like 8 full-fledged themed dungeons that feel very classic to past Zelda games, and they're very linear as well, and they even have items that you can use, but the items will be tied to a specific character that you find in that dungeon, and to use that item you have to switch to that character. Once you complete the dungeon, Link gets the item and the character maybe disappears. Maybe it's a sage or a ghost or something, but you can control that character or something within the actual dungeon until you complete it, and then you get that item for Link once you're done. So that way with the dungeon, every puzzle in that dungeon would all be based on that one item or all be based on that one additional character. I know it might sound crazy, maybe I didn't explain it that well, but you get what I'm kind of saying. But it's interesting to see that Aonuma and the Zelda team still want to try new things and expand on what they've already come up with like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's formula, because as they are regarded as almost near perfect games for a lot of people, they're still not perfect. There's things that I definitely would love to see change, and personally, that's really my only 2 complaints if I ever had to have any. It's just I wish there were more classic dungeons returning, because the ones in the Tears of the Kingdom just didn't scratch that itch for me the way I was hoping it would, and also the combat, because the combat can get very, very repetitive. But there's actually another thing. I kind of lied, because the more I thought about it and what else they could pull from the Warriors games, I thought about how good the cutscenes are in that game. The cutscenes in both Calamity and Imprisonment are really good, and they tie to the actual story based on the mission, and they progress as you progress in the game. And I feel like right now the story is another kind of bad part of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where all the story elements are flashbacks. You know, every single one were flashbacks to 100 years ago in Breath of the Wild, and also flashbacks to what Zelda was going through in Tears of the Kingdom. It's like nothing that advances the plot playing, so I hope they actually have a story that doesn't give us flashbacks, that doesn't send us back, but instead progresses the story as we go and gives us cutscenes as we play that happen in modern time. I know that might be hard to do with something that's an open world, free roam exploration, but it can be done. It's being done in other open world games as we speak. So a combination of all 3 would be awesome. Actually improved themed dungeons this time around with a lot more as well. Also improved combat and actual cutscenes and story that progresses as we play. With a stronger, more heartfelt and interesting story, I feel like the next open world Zelda game could be even 10 times better than the experiences that we've had in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Which is crazy to say when I think of how awesome of an experience Breath of the Wild at least was for me. Like, how would they even improve on that? Well, just like what I just said in this video. I'm super excited to see what Nintendo's cooking up, but it looks like we could have just had a little bit of a hint or a taste as to what they're going to be tweaking or changing with the formula. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of this idea. Do you think it's a good thing that they're incorporating things from Hyrule Warriors within the next mainline Zelda? Do you think it's a bad thing? Are you sick and tired of the open world Zelda stuff and want just a linear 3D Zelda like the classics? Let me know your opinions down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next one. See you guys.